Hey guys, I hope I am audible. If you can tell me on the chat, that would be great. Here, let me also type. Can you guys hear me or see me or both? I hope I'm audible. If you guys can just let me know on the chat. All right, perfect. Thanks. So, guys, my name is Pooty, and I am one of the many experts here at Leverage IELTS. Welcome to this live stream, and today's topic is speaking part two. So we're going to just wait for a few seconds more before other people also could join in. But in the meantime, let me just share the agenda of today's session with you. So we're going to look at, what is IELTS speaking part 2 because it is such an important, section of your IELTS speaking test. And what are these common mistakes that, students make so that you don't get to make them? How to speak for the entire duration? What should be our structure and pattern of IELTS speaking part 2 answers? How to deal, with that anxiety that might creep in. So welcome those who are just joining in. This is a live stream for IELTS speaking part 2. My name is Purti. We're going to begin in a few seconds. By the way, how many of you have taken the test before and probably will appear for another time? Is there anyone like that? Or are you guys beginners? So, is it the first time you're going to take this test or you have already appeared for it? You can just let me know on the chat whether you're first timers or you've taken it before. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's great. Beginner. Okay, planning to take the exam. Cool. How about the others? Have you taken it before or going to do it for the first time? Oh, Rohit, you appeared once. Okay. Bayant, 6.5. You already got a score. So, what's your score target, by the way? Beginner, first time. Okay, you need 7. That's right. Cool. Rohit, 6.5. Okay. All right, great. So, guys, we have almost a mix of it. Some of you have appeared for it before and some are targeting and would appear for this test. So okay, let's begin now. Speaking part 2, right? So the entire speaking section, it's a face to face interaction with the examiner. So you get to choose a date and you appear at your dedicated time slot, and there's going to be one person sitting across who's the interviewer, who's going to call you inside. They check your passport, and this conversation that they're going to happen, they'll have with you will be for 11 to 14 minutes. Okay, that's all. So that's, under 15 minutes is all you get to impress the examiner, to make sure that you show the flair of your language to them, so that they end up giving you a good band score. Now, a good band score is something, as per our requirements, or generally across the globe, across universities, or even people going for the general training. So for PR, they would require a 7 plus, right? So 7 in each. That's considered to be a fantastic score because it fulfills all your requirement. And more than that, it shows that you have a good level of English, right? So your proficiency in the language is also up to a certain standard, which is why our target is 7. Now, in order to get a 7 band score in speaking, there are some do's and don'ts, and some strategies and tricks that you'd have to employ so that you end up getting that score. Now, an integral part of this band score is this section called speaking part 2, which is a short talk. So the examiner, they give you this question on a piece of paper. It's a description question, right? Part 2 is all about you speaking and describing things to the other person. So it's not a conversation, it's not a two-way, conversation. It's only you speaking. So you get 1 minute of preparation time. They're going to give you a pencil and a paper also along, you don't have to carry anything. And they give you a question along. After that 1 minute is over, so they have a clock to measure it. After that 1 minute is over, the examiner then asks you to speak on the topic. Now, the minimum that you have to go for, they give you 2 minutes in total to speak. The minimum you speak is for 1 minute. But having said this, if you only speak for 1 minute, that is definitely not going to, be favorable to you, because the examiner in this part wants to see whether you are good at talking about a topic which is from your personal experience or life, and whether or not you're able to give details or cover or explain it to a certain extent. So even though why am I saying minimum 1 minute? Because that's what the instruction that they're going to give you, that you have 1 to 2 minutes to speak about it. But our target is always a 2 minute mark. So we keep on speaking until the examiner stops us. That's when we know, okay, now the 2 minutes are over. Because they will just stop after that. So even if you're in the middle of a sentence and the examiner says, okay, that's all right, thank you, that's enough, it's our time, so you just stop. You don't have to panic that you weren't able to finish your story or you weren't able to finish your talk. That's all right. You have spoken enough. Anything before that, there's always a higher risk that your band scores will be affected because of that. Something around 1 minute 50 seconds or so, still good enough. But of course, our target is always speaking until the examiner stops you. So how do we do that? This is where your strategies would come in. Before that, you have to remember there is no shortcut to it. It's all about preparation and practice. So the better you practice, the more your the correct guidance you get, and then you're able to evolve into this longer answers and the correct way of answering. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So, what we're going to do is to take up a recent speaking question, and I'll tell you how you can use that preparation time of 1 minute, and then how we are, able to narrate a story from it. So, this recent question, and this came in, on November 19th, the before Saturday that went in India, one of the exams, is describe something that you have lost. Right, so that's always the main question. They give you a description, and then there are sub points that they provide. So what was it, when was this, how did you feel about losing it, so on and so forth. Is everyone aware of this, the way in which they give you part 2 question? Yes, no, if you can tell me on the chat. Are you aware of how they provide you the speaking part 2 question? Crystal says yes. Right, of course. Okay, how about the others? All right. Yes. All right, cool. Now, the first mistake that students make is to waste this 1 minute of preparation time. They think, okay, this is the question. They start thinking about it. There is no note making happening. And when the 1 minute gets over, they start speaking. I mean, you could do that. Making notes is not compulsory, but it is preferable, because then you have so many ideas running in your head that you want to have something scribbled on the sheet so that you can have a coherent answer. Coherent meaning it makes sense. There's a logic behind the first thing you say, the second thing you say, so on and so forth, because that also will be counted in your score. So fluency plus coherence, both the things the examiners look for. So which is why, do not make this mistake of not writing down anything. On the other extreme, what people do is they start writing sentences, right? That's also not what we are supposed to do. We just mention keywords, key points, so that those are the things that we could refer to and then make sentences out of it. Okay, step one, do not make this mistake. Now, how do we make our notes? So, as soon as you get the topic, right, you have 60 seconds only to, prepare the whole thing. So, the first 5 to 10 seconds you spend in imagining a whole, storyline or the plot of your main topic, whatever you're going to say. And remember, the best part about the exam is that they're not testing your, truth or knowledge, general knowledge. They're just looking at your language ability. So you need not tell them anything true necessarily. I mean, you could give them a real life story or experience, but it could also be entirely made up, right? So the more details you can provide them, the better it is going to be. So even if you take up a real life example, ensure that you add on details so that you end up filling that 2 minutes of time, and of course everything should be relevant. So in the first 5 to 10 seconds, we think of a storyline. So from beginning to ending. So let's come back to our sample, right? Describe something that you lost. So take the first thing that comes to your mind. For example, something that comes to my mind is losing my iCard, right? Can you also tell me some ideas? Could we have some ideas on the chat? What could you write if you have to write about something you lost? Let's see. First thing that comes to your mind. iPhone. Wow, I know that will be quite a pain, but that's correct, Udit. What else? Car keys? Yep, yep. Yeah, think about things that we could easily lose. Okay, so phone, car keys, grandmother with dementia, probably. Not a good thing, but hey, who is to judge? Nobody will check you or judge you for that. So, hey, grandmother, why not? Wallet, yes, that's true. Yeah, easy things to forget. Charger, that's right. Some pen, yep, yep. All right, so we have this whole idea. Okay, we have the first topic. So let's say we pick anything. We pick one thing and then we start building up on it. So let's say we take a wallet or a pen, right? Now, after the first 5 seconds, when you think of this idea, the next step is to think of the whole plot. And this is where you're going to bring in WH questions. So, for instance, you think around these questions to build up your story, your narration. So, WH questions like when, who, what, why, where. So, in your notes, when you're thinking of the topic and writing keywords, these are the questions that you should be answering. So, for instance, if we take a pen, right? Let's stick to that. So, first thing, what sort of a pen, right? And why was it such a valuable pen to you? So we answer these WH question. So what was the pen like? Okay, who gave it to you? Right? So you could say that it was an expensive pen from France that my uncle got for me on my birthday last year. Right? So all the details you'd have to write down on your notes. Will mentioning about a person be correct in the context because the question says thing? No, no. The question says something that you lost, right? It could be a person, could be anyone. Yeah. The examiner is not going to, again, like I said, is not going to check you on your content as such or topic. So you could say taboo things also as long as they are on topic. It wouldn't matter. It's okay. You can do that. And in fact you could just like probably smirk or smile or laugh at yourself and say that I've not forgotten a thing per se, but I'm afraid I have to tell you that I've lost a person for a while. Yeah, I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but hey, since you're asking, let me tell you how it happened, right? So you could do that. All right, so we start building that storyline. So, okay, let's say it's a pen. Now, before jumping on to, okay, this is where I lost, always give a background. So, in this 1 minute of time, along with the WH questions, always think of a background. Never start your answer right there, with the main idea. Because then there is always a chance that you might end up, stopping before the 2 minute mark. Because, you don't want to repeat ideas, you don't want to speak for 1.5 minutes and again go back to something that you mentioned in the first sentence. Coherence will be disturbed. Which is why, along with this WH questions, think about the background. Now, the background is really simple. Always pick it up from the question. Get the main crux of the theme. So, for example, in this question, describe something you lost. We are talking about losing things, right? So, things which are attached to that. So, for instance, memory. So let's say you start your answer by telling the topic to the examiner. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that I lost last month at a fair, educational fair, let's say, and it was actually a pen. Now, generally, I don't lose things. I'm not a forgetful person. I don't, let's say we bring in an idiom. I don't have a memory like a sieve, right? So that means you have a bad memory, something like that. So this is my background. I'm telling them, okay, this is not the kind of person I am. But yeah, once I lost something like this. So two, three sentences in the beginning itself, setting the tone of the answer. Now, another, for example, another recent exam question, which was last weekend, was describe a person who is creative. And one of our other students got describe a person who inspires you. So creative inspires you, so it's about a person basically. So before again jumping on to the main point, you could say that, okay, I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to describe a person who inspired me. Let's say my parent, one of them, whether my teacher, my mentor, friend, neighbor, anyone that you could pick. And you could say that, I am somebody who is always on a lookout for, learning things. And I'm always motivated to do better. And then there are those, I'm lucky enough to have those around me who are inspiring, and one of those people is this. So always have these 2 3 sentences from the theme that they provide you. After that, you come to the main points covering those WH questions. So coming back to our point, which is, as Rohit mentioned, a pen. So I mentioned, okay, this is the pen. So what do we talk about? Its appearance, its brand, why is it valuable? If you want to add cost to it, details. The key is in details. And then you move on to talking about how you lost it. So a good 30 seconds after the introduction, 2 3 lines, so let's say 15 seconds, and then 30 seconds would be on the description of the pen before coming on to how you lost it. Now, if the same thing is about a person, right, the other questions I've given you, or about an event. So, again, description of these WH before coming on to the main thing, how you lost it, or why are they inspiring? What was that incident that, made them inspiring to you? So, have that plan, have the structure, sort of like a template for all your answers. Okay, so coming to how we lost it. So, like I mentioned, right, it was a pen. Uncle gave it to me, birthday, expensive, from France, da da da. And then I say, okay, so, just I went to this educational fair last month, and since I've been using this pen throughout my days ever since it was gifted to me, I just absent-mindedly carried it to the fair as well. So, in the as soon as I reached, I saw a sea of people in front of me, so mentioning that there was crowd, right, a large crowd rather, and there were different booths that were there, so the different colleges, and you can, just talk about the setting of the whole place. So, universities from UK, US, Australia, Canada had come, and I wanted to visit them and understand all the offerings that I would have, and how the courses are, and what sort of a all the facilities I would get, so on and so forth. So to every booth that I went to, they were asking me to fill these forms. I was using my pen, and it I was there in the fair for about 4 hours. It was quite exhausting. It was a whole big ground where we had to walk for so long to visit all the booths, but I was really looking forward to it because I'm planning my education abroad. So it was a very instructive and enriching program too. So by the end of it, when I got out and I was checking out all the brochures and all the goodies that they had provided me, then you could mention that you realized and your heart sank, another idiom, to realize that you've lost your pen is nowhere to be found. And while you are doing that, the expression not only on your face but in your tone also should come across. It should look like to the examiner that yeah, you really lost something precious. So voice modulation, which is counted in pronunciation, is also one of the factors that they are going to check. So if you're happy, it should also come across in your voice like that. If you're sad or disappointed, it should come across in your voice like that. So I was reduced to tears. My heart sank when I realized that I didn't have the pen on me. Now, when you are, let's go back to making notes. So when you're making notes, that's what I do, and that's why I'm sharing this with you. Apart from the WH questions, the whole plot that I envision for myself, that okay, pen, this is where I lost it, this is what I was doing, this is how I'm going to say things one after the other. Along with that, at that point of time, if you could also think of a couple of phrasal verbs or idioms, that's cherry on the cake, because that shows that you have a large range of vocabulary, lexical resource, and they will definitely, as one of the factors, also check that. Now the same, this does not mean that you have to go on cramming 50 top idioms or 100 idioms, and you will be able to use them. That doesn't happen. Have a couple of idioms ready up your sleeve that you can use in any situation that might be asked, because you're never really sure what might come, right? So what we suggest to our students is, for example, have some idioms to speak up or to use when you're happy, some idioms to use for people, some idioms to use for when you're sad or angry, and no matter what the situation, you will be able to use them. And not in part 2, in part 1 or 3 also, right? So just keep that in mind. You don't have to go on learning a whole list of it to be able to use them, right? So that's when, so I panicked. I went back inside the fair. I tried going to all the booths, but in vain, because I couldn't find my beloved pen. And in the end, I just couldn't do anything, and I almost lost all hope. When suddenly this person came calling out my name, I turned around and I saw this fellow candidate or study abroad aspirant who borrowed the pen from me at our last booth and was looking out for me. So I was elated to find him, and I thanked him for returning making the effort and returning the pen to me. And as soon as I got it, I smiled ear to ear, or I was happy, and idioms for happiness and all that. So since then, I have been on guard. I've been on my toes. I've been alert. And I don't now take the pen everywhere with me. But, on special occasions, I definitely carry it, and I take care that I don't lose sight of it or don't end up losing it again. That's how you would wrap up your, answer. Now during your speech, if you realize that you have had an a beginning, you've talked about wh questions, you've covered the main aspect of the answer, and now you are going towards your conclusion, but the examiner still doesn't seem to be stopping or asking you to stop, so that you're still not up your time, you still have time left. That's when you do what I just did to talk about the future or the present. So for instance, since then I have been on guard, I've taken the pen, I've stopped using it in my everyday work or college or things like that. I only carry it for special occasions. And that remembering that incident still gives me goosebumps. And when I tell this to other people, it might seem silly that I'm attaching such a sentimental value to a pen, but it has a great value for me, which is why I don't care what other people think, but I think it is precious to me, and so I take care of it. Something. Right, so have this structure, that part one is the first minute that you get before you are asked to speak is crucial. Please do not waste it in thinking of, oh, let me think of a unique idea, let me think of something which hasn't been talked about before, because the examiners are least bothered about it. The only thing they'll look at is pronunciation, fluency, relevancy, that you're not going off the track, you are staying true to the topic, your vocabulary and your grammar. That's all. Nobody cares about what you're talking about or whether or not it's a safe answer or not. That's also okay, you can go for safe answers. But yeah, have this structure in your mind and practice. You can do anything without practice. So there are four kinds of part two questions that we get. So for instance, just now we're talking about a thing, right? Similarly, I mentioned questions about people. Apart from that, you also have experiences, right? So they, for example, they say, okay, talk about a time that you got bored at a party, talk about a time or describe a time that you had to wait for a long time in a queue. So have those structures or templates ready. That really helps. No matter what topic, you know how you're going to go about it. And of course, you practice with somebody who can give you feedback, who knows what the examiners are expecting. You go always according to the assessment criteria and nothing else. Nothing else matters if you're fulfilling the assessment criteria. Accent, another misconception that students have, that if you have a certain accent you might get a better chance of scoring. No, that is simply not true. All you need to do is be intelligible to the listener. They should not strain a lot or strain at all in understanding what you're saying. That's all. So be loud, voice modulation, like I said, should be a part of it. And just be confident, you should be ready with giving them extended answers, and that's what matters. All right. Do you understand this structure? I hope those who have been there with me from the beginning. Now, do you have any questions that I could address, before we wrap up this session? Anything else that worries you about speaking? I'm also putting down our phone number. So Leverage IELTS, also conducts these live sessions for all the modules of IELTS. And if you want, you can give us a call to find out more about it. Every week we have this Leverage IELTS YouTube channel, and every week we have these free webinars and live sessions that you could come to and interact to know more. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, because we have lot of content and practice material also on the YouTube channel that you can refer to. So do check out, after you subscribe, do check out the videos and playlists, so that you know what to do and what not to do. And of course, if you want to know more about the live sessions and how more we could help you and guide you, then feel free to connect with us on this number. Now, any questions? If you have, you can post it on the chat. Anybody? Anything around speaking? How can one speak for 2 minutes without mistakes? See, mistakes could be of various kinds in IELTS speaking part two, right? So one could be errors in grammar, errors in vocabulary. So you end up repeating your words, using the same words over and over, wrong words. You could end up going off the topic. You could end up not giving incoherent answers. So there could be n number of mistakes that one could commit, right? So which is why the way you can speak for 2 minutes without making all of these errors is by understanding what is the right way to go about it and practicing and getting feedback. No other way, no shortcut, like I mentioned. So if you're self preparing, right, I'd strongly recommend that you at least for speaking have somebody who can give you feedback, right? And record yourself, listen to your own audio, understand where you're going right and wrong based on the assessment criteria, and then prepare, like look for vocabulary, have collocations, have phrasal verbs, have different grammar structures, and see that you end up speaking for 2 minutes and not less. How to answer WH questions if you're not so familiar with the topic? See, Rohit, first of all, they don't give you, unfamiliar topics as such. Unfamiliar could be that you probably don't talk about it a lot. So, for instance, an unfamiliar question, part one, could be, what's your favorite bird? Right? Those kinds of questions. But you still can answer them. So, even if you don't have a favorite bird, or that's the last thing that, you might think about, just say any bird that know. So the WH questions are also like this. And I'll tell you what, like I've just told you, right? That, this pen my uncle gifted it to me. You don't have to use this idea for only one type of question. You could use it for any question. For example, describe a favorite book, that you have recently read, or describe a book you have read. Oh, so it is Harry Potter. I don't read books. Name any book, any movie which was made from books and say that, okay, this is what I've read. And this book, my uncle gifted it to me. My sister gifted it to me. So the same idea, the same WH answers, you can use in any speaking part to cue card. You have to be smart enough to, identify that. So one idea should not be limited to one cue card. So even if you get something unfamiliar that you haven't experienced, borrow from other cue cards that you might have practiced. Go with that. All right. And which is why, just to wrap things up with Leverage IELTS, the sessions, the live sessions that we conduct, this is why that practice and that expert is there to help you out, to help you figure out a path, to help you understand, what to do when you're going blank, or how to deal with something when you don't know it. I'm not fluent now. How long it will take me to ace all the three parts? So, Neeraj, that's a valid question actually. Now, see, fluency, of course, is something that wouldn't be achieved immediately, but there are certain, you know, tips to help you out and, to correct. I was about to mention to overcome your fear. And one of the ways in which you build fluency is by using linkers. So, for instance, if you're speaking for part two, right, and you've spoken for a certain time, but you're about to go blank. So, you are in the middle of a sentence and you realize that, after this, I really have nothing else to say. So, what do? You bring in a linker. For example, again, if we go back to our sample answer, describe something that you lost. And if you're talking about the education fair and the pen we lost, suppose I've spoken, a couple of points, and after that, I don't know what to say. So I bring in a linker. So I say, I'm just remembering that incident, uh, makes me embarrassed because, there was so much happening. And now that I'm telling you half the things I don't even remember, just give me a second to, remember what I did after that. I remember being in so much panic. Okay, let's see what I did after that. Huh. Do you see what I did? These four sentences that I've said had nothing to do with my points, right? But I am speaking because at the back of my mind, I am trying to think of, you know, what next I could tell to the examiner. What else could I add? But silence would kill your score. So instead of, going silent and then thinking about it, have this, you know, chatter going on so that the fluency is maintained. So, and fluency does not mean, by the way, that you go on speaking one thing after the other, right? So remember that you have to take appropriate pauses. You can pause in between, of course not too long a pause, but you can pause. It's how you deal with that pause is, what they will appreciate in IELTS. All right, guys. So, coming to an end of this session, I hope this was fruitful to you in some way or the other. Keep watching this space, subscribe to the channel so that you can get to know more of these tips and tricks. And of course, if you want personal help, you can reach out to the phone number mentioned. I am putting it again. Thank you so much. I'll hopefully see you guys again. Bye.